John, Egbert, Rosalana,
Shut
Send the Sunrise,
up.
Much Dog, Marvel, Gay Strider, they all play
Shut
Scorpion in the world.
Shut up!
Harley Quinn, Nana,
Shut the fuck up! Shut up! Stop! Shut up! Be quiet! Jesus Christ. Shut the hell up.
Damn.
Thank you. Thank you. Please clap. Please clap.
Yay!
Alright. Thank you. Thank you all for gathering here today. I present to you Homestuck 101. Oh, here, let me bring up my fancy pointer. Homestuck 101. This university lecture is going to be all about the titular webcomic Homestuck. Revered by millions, hated by billions, Homestuck is probably the longest, like, I don't know, piece of, like, internet media that has been created over the last, like, decade. We're going to get into all about its timeline, and mostly hit over the main story beats and skip over a lot of the, like, characterization stuff and little plot details. Just the core essentials so that you understand what Homestuck is. Dear listener, at the end of this lecture, I promise you, you will know what Homestuck is. So, introductions. My name is Wazzles. I am your professor for this Homestuck 101 course today, and joining me are my disciples, my students, my acolytes and peons. I'll call you all by name, and you just fucking say some retarded bullshit about how your diaper's full of shit or something, okay? Morgan, please introduce yourself to the class.
What? Oh, so I was eating spaghetti.
Alright, shut up. Liam?
I pretend to have Down syndrome for attention.
Thank you, Liam. It's not pretending if you actually have it. Lily?
I don't know shit about this.
Perfect. Yes, some people joining us today know nothing about Homestuck. That is good. You will know by the end of today what Homestuck is. Did I call your name, student? Did you raise your hand? Incorrect. That's 2 demerits.
Teacher.
1 more and you are out of this classroom, straight to detention, straight to hell. I will cut off your head with a sword.
Damn.
Fizzy? Is Fizzy present?
I read the first sentence of Act 4 15 times.
Incredible. Thank you, Fizzy. Dedicated to the cause. Filler?
I walked through this door and then it locked behind me. I need help.
Oh, well, sorry, there's no leaving this lecture hall once you enter, or you will be shot on sight. Cleffa?
I only read the good part of Homestuck, and then I forgot to keep going.
We will get into the good parts as well. Thank you for reminding us. June?
I am Homestuck.
Incredible. Thank you, John Homestuck, also known as June. And finally, our good friend Smragnall. Please introduce yourself.
I'm actually Andrew Hussey. I actually wrote Homestuck.
Oh, shit, he got in.
Oh my god.
Damn it.
It's my mother.
Alright.
This isn't fucking happening. This isn't true.
So, let's begin. What is Homestuck? Where are their arms? Homestuck is a funny little webcomic created by a man most dreaded, most foul, by the name of Andrew Hussey. We've actually kidnapped him and have him in the lecture hall here now. So it's a webcomic, but not only is it a webcomic, it is like a multimedia masterpiece. It was made like predominantly through like Photoshop and Flash. And not only is it like have incredible visuals that you can see, you know, all throughout the sides here that I've displayed for you, it has like tons of amazing Flash animations, like little games, music. Homestuck is an incredible work of art, for the most part. People complain, oh, where are their arms? I hate the art style. The early Homestuck looks so bad. They're all wrong. It is full of charm, and it has inspired like millions of artists to take up this incredible Hussey MS Paint style. The purpose of this lecture is to inform you about the total timeline of key events in Homestuck's story, and, you know, like, crucial plot elements to understand what is like going on, basically. And you listening, all you terrible, awful students listening to this lecture, I encourage you, ask questions, get involved. If you end this lecture without being a funny character, I will have to return you to the ether above in heaven, and you will have to be reborn as a fresh blank and try again in this life.
Back to the ectobiology chamber.
If you don't interrupt me and scream about how much you love Carcat Vantis, then I'm gonna be sorely disappointed.
It
Who?
sounds like a rake asking to be
I haven't
speculated.
heard Carcat Vantis because we haven't gotten to
Well,
that part
you
of the
will
lecture.
know once we get to the funny gray people
Oh.
later in this lecture.
All will be
I
understood.
love
There's
Drunken
gray
Rampa.
people?
Yeah. So,
When do I get
Andrew
the
Hussey,
butterfly wing?
MS Paint Adventures, Homestuck itself, the epilogues in Homestuck 2. MS Paint Adventures is the sort of like sort of umbrella of Andrew Hussey's work. The author, Andrew Hussey, has made these little comics like Bard Quest, like Jailbreak. Problem Sleuth is probably his best work ever, rivaled with Homestuck, if not for the disparity in length. And Homestuck itself, which is, obviously this huge, fucking incredibly popular webcomic thing. After Homestuck, he wrote a book, basically, called The Epilogues, which details the sort of post-story, the epilogues of Homestuck itself. And ongoing to this day is Homestuck 2, which is a sequel to the original webcomic, created in part with actual fan fiction creators to make canonized content. So, spoiler warning, everything after this point will spoil the entirety of Homestuck. If you want to go in completely blind, you should do so now. Homestuck, especially early Homestuck, early on in the comic, there's tons of mystery, and you don't really know what's going on or what everything means. You'll probably finish the webcomic and still not know what the hell happened. So going through it multiple times is encouraged to understand all the little mysteries, all the timeline connections that happen throughout the comic. So if you want to enjoy Homestuck in its purest form, close off this video, dislike this video, run away now. Any other opening remarks before we begin? Anything you'd like to add, students?
I have an assertion I need to make.
Sure.
Homestuck too scary.
I forgot what it was. Never mind.
Thank you so much for wasting all of our time.
I have two
Damn.
things to say.
You're welcome.
Homestuck 2 is not canon, and look Mom on YouTube.
Thank you, Liam.
Because it's beyond canon. What even is canon?
Yeah, we'll
Canon
get
is
into how
meaningless.
crappy the Homestuck 2 canon
It's
shit
canon-
is.
Don't
it's
even
canon
know
like
what
a big
Silence!
is yet.
Silence! Do not say another fucking word. We're going to begin. And by begin, I mean pre-set up everything about Homestuck. So, we know what Homestuck is. It is a webcomic. But what's it about? What is actually going on within the bounds, the horrifying mind of Andrew Hussey? Homestuck is about, at its core, a video game. It is about a video game called Spurb. And Spurb isn't like other video games. It is a, magic video game. And not like wizard, lightning bolts and fireballs and magic missiles and shit. It's like a universal, entity that can control space and reality in, sort of passive, sort of setting up the dominoes and knocking them down sort of way. And it spans across all time. We'll get into the alpha timeline and how all that shit happens, but understand that Homestuck is a story about Spurb, a magic video game that can control the universe. And within Spurb, it is also a story about teens. It's about the relatable audience of people who would be reading Homestuck at that time. It is about characters you really start to enjoy, you can reflect off of and see the good in them and reflect themselves into you. It has incredible characterization most of the time. Again, we'll get into the dip in quality in Homestuck later on, but for the most part, Homestuck is a really well-written, funny, enthralling story about this weird magic video game called Spurb and the teens that play through them, human and alien, as we will get into. But the thing about Homestuck's story is that the timeline is incredibly fucked. The timeline is incredibly fucked. So, It's told in a sort of fragmentary, extra confusing and complicated sort of way, where you will bounce back and forth between time and when things happened. For the purpose of this lecture, we will be telling the story linearly. Like, if you're watching this lecture, you know Homestuck is complicated. You know it's you've read a little bit about it and are trying to understand what the hell is even going on. Maybe not for some of you students in the audience. I'd like to ask, what do you guys know of Homestuck's story before we go in? Like, where are you at in the sort of headspace when you think about Homestuck's story, to you students?
I've heard it has nice music.
It does have nice music. That has nothing to do with the
The
story.
music.
Demerit.
Oh. Oh.
So-
Funny John
so-
Eggman.
Okay, there's like the whole carapace thing, and then the frostbitten durst, and like their
Yep.
I remember-
civilizations.
So, as a person who can vaguely, so I read the whole thing, right? But I can't fucking remember shit because memory shot. I think I'm gonna like remember it a lot better than it actually was. You know what I mean? I guess that's what I have to say about the plot.
Sure. Well, we're going to refresh everything about it now. Before we get into the actual events of the story, you need to understand how this magic video game Spurb works. So, it's a video game, but it's more of like a process to create universes. It's like a magical system in where a universe will create an entire new universe. Like, like Milky Way galaxies and planets and shit. Like a whole universe. And it does so through sort of enlisting members of humanity that are destined to play the game to go through a series of trials and tribulations that will ultimately give them the ultimate reward, which is this new universe. So Spurb works in a series of steps. The pre-game is the sort of frog temples and setting up of the players. So Spurb, within the game of Spurb, there's this entity called Skya, and that is this big sort of sky thing you see here, with all the meteors coming towards it. Skya is this like semi-intelligent, sort of like weirdly sapient, not godlike, but just powerful being. And Skya is a crucible of unlimited potential and creation. And it is instrumental to the ultimate reward of Spurb, the creation of a new universe. Skya has only one thing it can really control, and that is the placement of asteroids that are coming to destroy it. So these asteroids, and we'll get into how these asteroids are sent later on, but basically all you need to know is, within Spurb, there's a thing called Skya. Like, it's a sky planet that's blue, in the middle is a chessboard, and these asteroids are raining down that are going to kill Skya. It can put up these like little spirograph portals that prevent the meteors from destroying it and sending them out somewhere else in time and space. The Skya will send in these meteors to the planet of the like the home worlds of the players that are destined to play Spurb. We'll get into why these players are destined and why they kind of like have to play Spurb or they stop existing later on. So Skya will take these meteors and send them into, for example, Earth, because eventually Skya is played, or rather Spurb is played by humans on Earth. So Skya, a bunch of meteors are coming at Skya, it redirects them and sends them to Earth. So Earth will be destroyed instead of Skya. Millions of years before humanity develops, an asteroid carrying something called the Frog Temple lands into the planet. And this Frog Temple is like it's like an ancient ruin, sorta, where like there's a frog on it. And the important thing about these frog temples is within the frog temple is written on the walls, the stone walls of the temple, are like code for a video game. And when that code for the video game is taken off the walls and transcribed into an actual like game, it becomes Spurb. So this asteroid, this frog temple, lands onto the Earth. Humanity develops like millions of years later, discovers the temple, takes the code written on the walls of the temples, and puts it onto a disc. And after that initial asteroid with the Frog Temple is sent, and humanity develops, eventually more asteroids with like baby versions of the characters riding on top of them collide into Earth. They don't like die, because, you know, you'd think like a baby on an asteroid would like die in the resulting explosion, let alone riding the asteroid. But no, they're fine. Like they just kind of show up. So these
Built different.
yeah, these babies on the asteroid crash into Earth, and they are adopted by these characters called Guardians. And the Guardians sort of oversee the kids grow up and be able to play Spurb later on. There's a special character called a First Guardian, which is related to the Green Sun, and it has magic powers that kind of facilitate making sure the game goes on. But we'll get into the Green Sun and First Guardians later on. Just understand that Guardians and the First Guardians are a thing that exists. Alright, so entering the medium. When you are a human playing, or rather a human who lives on Earth, and say, you know, your friends, like characters later in the story, John Egbert, Dave Strider, Rosalind, Jade, they will gain access to disc copies of Spurb later in the timeline. And when John Egbert, specifically a human on Earth, plugs in this disc of Spurb into his computer, more meteors begin hailing the Earth. They have been subtly in the background, but they become more prominent once the game of Spurb actually engages. So you'll load up this disc, and then a meteor is going to come destroy your house. And it's like, well, fuck, I don't want to get killed by a meteor. That sounds like it sucks. So what do? You have to play the game of Spurb to escape the destruction of your homeworld. If you go through the game's tutorial by placing down these funny machines and doing these abstract game sort of actions that are really complicated, you will escape, you will like teleport you and your entire house into an alternate dimension in which the game will take place. So this magic video game will teleport you, if you complete the tutorial, out of harm's way, out of the meteors that are going to destroy your house, and into the medium, which is the game space in which you will actually play and try and claim the ultimate reward. The humans do this. They end up on the medium, and the thing about Spurb is that it has desires. It wants to survive. And to make sure its players are motivated to survive, it does a couple things. Firstly, Spurb, the game itself, is partly designed to help its players self-actualize and like fulfill their power fantasy. It does this so it motivates you, like, yeah, I want to beat the game and become like the best version of myself. Through Spurb's trials and tribulations, you will grow up into a better person, basically. Or that's the goal, at least. Most kids will fail because it's really hard and obtuse as to how to progress in Spurb. So the kids, eventually, I'll keep using the humans for this example, but a Spurb game could happen with any intelligent species. But say the humans, they enter their game of Spurb unscathed, they leave behind Earth, Earth is destroyed, and they are all teleported into this dimension called the medium. This is like the planets. Each player has their own planet that they explore and is generated for them within the game Spurb. There are a number of other game constructs within Spurb to help motivate players to actually create a universe, to create the ultimate reward. And that is the War of Light and Dark and the NPCs of Skya and Spurb itself. The War of Light and Dark is a war committed between the inhabitants of the NPCs of the game, and that is between two major factions. The Prospitians, which are sort of the forces of good and light who live on this yellow moon called Prospit. And then the evil sort of faction, like these guys, they live on this purple moon called Durs. And they engage in this war that will destroy Skya if the forces of light lose. But the thing is, in every single game of Spurb, the forces of light, the good guys, are destined to lose every time. It is only a matter of time that the Prospitians will lose and the bad guys will win, basically. Why they want to destroy all of creation, why the Dursites commit this war, it's just kind of programmed into them because of the game. So, if the players don't help stop the Black King, this villain guy, and the forces of Durs, then Skaya will be destroyed in an event known as the Reckoning, where these meteors are sent towards Skaya to destroy it. This Black King guy, he sends meteors to kill Skaya. If they don't prevent this from happening, then Sky is destroyed. They can no longer create a new universe, and they're just kind of stuck in the medium forever. So yeah, the Black King, he issues a bunch of meteors in the furthest ring surrounding the game. Like there's sort of a boundary box around Spurb. Oh, yes, Spragnall, Andrew Hussey, you have a question? I see you raised your hand.
Why is that guy like a funny clown man with tentacles?
We'll get into prototyping and its consequences later on, vis-a-vis Jack Noir and the utter destruction of every living thing he touches.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yes.
No, that was it.
Liam.
Teacher, when can I honk the horn?
No, die. You're skirting the edges of another demerit here, friend. You better be careful. Where was I? So, the players must prevent the destruction of Skaya so that they can claim the ultimate reward and, like, win the video game. Oh, sorry. Morgan? More questions?
But like, Fedora Freak doesn't die, right?
We will get into that. We will get into the fate of Fedora Freak and the Gent of Piss.
No.
And by get into that, I mean completely gloss over it, because it's not important to the story. Cleffa, you have a question.
Why are the Carapacian queens hot?
Andrew Hussey,
Motivate.
Andrew Hussey, Andrew Hussey,
Andrew
Andrew Hussey,
Hussey,
Andrew Hussey, Andrew Hussey. Silence! Silence!
I know the answer. It's to motivate the players.
Exactly. Spurb motivates you with those hot white and black moms to get things done, so that it can continue to survive and propagate itself in new universes. That's why, you clever bastard, Spurb. I'm erect. Anyways, so Skaya... Anyways, humans prevent the destruction of Skaya. The Black King initiates this event called the Reckoning, which is like a 24-hour period, which is like, okay, go beat the game, or Skaya will be destroyed, and that's it. You lose. It's like a kill screen, a failure state. Now, you see Skaya sending all these meteors from the portals. Originally, the kids escaped a bunch of meteors being sent to their planet, and, went into the game. And now later, in the game, more meteors are being sent to Skaya. Skaya is sending the meteors that are going to destroy it in the past to make sure it doesn't die. It is like a matter of time before the meteors just overwhelm Skaya, but the players, the humans in this case, escape from their destroyed Earth from the meteors that the game sends from the future, if that makes sense. So, like, they escape the meteors in the past when Skaya sends them from the future to the past. There's a bunch of aspects of Spurb that I don't want to indulge too much. The exploration of Spurb and its mechanics is one of the big mysteries of Homestuck that is so much fun to discover and learn more about as you're going through the comic. Specifically, one thing I love is the God tiers. I won't get into them too much, but basically it is a form of, like, when you complete when you complete your quests in Spurb and you defeat your denizen, which is like your final boss of your planet, you achieve like a perfection of who you want to be, and that is your God tier. God tiers are like your role within the overarching narrative of your session. And God tiers are really cool. They are based on 12 fundamental aspects of the narrative. There's, there's time. Every story has time. There's space. Every story has settings. Emotions, thoughts, anger, hope, all these different things, and each player is gifted mastery over one of these aspects when they complete their quests. And they get these sort of like psychic powers they can use to like go back in time or like shrink down entire planets to the size of a marble. Yes, Liam, you have a question?
Isn't it? I might be I might be conflating the classes and the aspects, but isn't one of them have like where like we don't know? Yeah, I'm thinking of the classes. I'm sorry, teacher. It's one of them's like fucked up and we don't know what it is, or like whatever is like two of them.
All the god tiers are bullshit. Andrew Hussey is a hack, but he's also based.
Yeah, the one god tier.
Hey, you didn't raise your hand. Demerit.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Cleffa, yes, you have a question or a comment.
Yeah, it's that the god tier that we don't know about. I'm pretty sure it's 90% sure it's mage, right?
We don't know much about half of them. I mean,
Yeah,
most of the main characters, god tiers that we see, we can glean a lot. Like, we know a lot about knights, we know a lot about heirs, but like, most of the god tier stuff is just completely bullshit. So don't worry about them too much. Just understand that there is a condition in the game that makes players conditionally immortal, where they can't die if like you cut off their head. They'll just come back to life and grow back. But if you kill them when they're doing something heroic, like if your friend is fighting off a wave of monsters and about to die, but you jump in front of the bullet and you know die heroically, then your conditional immortality, your god status, is revoked and you will actually like fucking die. Same thing if you do a just action. Like if you're doing something evil, like you're gonna shoot your friend when they're trying to save someone, and then you die, that would be evil. So if you do something good or evil, if you die doing something good or evil, you will die. And it's a point that comes up for a few characters within the story. But mostly just understand there's a phase in reality where like, you know, you can't die and you just kind of live forever and get psychic powers, which is really cool. Inspires tons of amazing speculation. Like, there's a million Tumblr blogs that are like, class spec analyzation, what the hell does it mean? Because it's so interesting. I love god tiers. Thank you, Andrew Hussey. Fuck you, Andrew Hussey. So, the Spurb's ultimate reward is, you know, you create a universe. If you beat the game, you become your god tier, you defeat the Black King, you stop the Reckoning from destroying Skya, you do something called frog breeding. Frog breeding is not what it sounds like. It is what it sounds like. You breed these like little frog creatures together, and the goal is to create a perfect Genesis frog that will grow into like the celestial being, and inside the frog is the universe that you're creating with Spurb. So like, there's a couple other steps, but all you need to understand is the players of the game, they beat the game. During this, they create something called the Genesis Frog. The Genesis Frog flies into the sky at the ultimate crucible of creation and potential, and morphs into this universal being that houses a universe inside the frog. Yes, Morgan, you have a question.
Oh, that was me.
Or sorry, June. I can't tell.
Can just anybody breed a frog?
It is a task specifically designated to the space player of the session, which is a type of god tier aspect, but it's not too important who makes them. Yes, Fizzy, you have a question.
Are the frogs really big, or are they small frogs?
They start small and become as big as a universe. Okay? That is a general overview of Spurb. That's pretty much what you need to understand. It's a magic video game that takes intelligent species from a planet, puts them in the medium, makes them play a game and achieve, or try to achieve, the perfect versions of themselves, and then create a new universe for them to all go live in and repeat the process, basically. Any questions on how Spurb works? Oh, okay. Filler, yes, question first?
Okay, so if you stuck your hand in the Genesis Frog, could you pull out the universe and just like hold it?
If you were a really powerful space player, I bet you could, but it's never gone on in the comic, so we'll never know. And then Liam, another question?
I didn't have a question. I had a comment. Am I allowed to make a comment or no?
Absolutely.
So I love how like Spurb's version of like the perfect player is like a fucked up kid that's like at the like he's like fucking seen his like mates die, you know what I mean? And then like he's fucking about to fucking he's like this like turning point of age. You're like, yeah, I'm like a god now, but like also everything's fucked up.
Yeah.
And,
you turn these 13-year-olds into gods.
Yeah, Spurb's perfect man, woman, or they is like a fucking like fucked up kid with trauma, but with superpowers, so it's cool.
I mean, it wants you to be happy. Spurb is a self-actualization fantasy. Whatever you desire within Spurb, you will get. Spurb will make sure you get it. But sometimes it's not always what you want. So yeah, God tiers are very interesting. The act of Spurb and the self-actualization power fantasy is very interesting. But you know that's all you need to understand about Spurb. This is the game that is going to be played by the characters of the story. Okay? All right. Moving on. Here we go. The Homestuck Timeline from start
people.
to end. The Gray People. We got there. The funny Gray People. So you have to understand about the Homestuck Timeline. It takes place across 4 key universes. Basically two that get like bites the dust, like reset, like unwound, and you know we'll get into the scratch later. Just understand it takes place across 4 universes. The first universe that happens within the timeline of Homestuck is the Trolls' homeworld, and that is before us. These funny little gray people, they're aliens called trolls, and they're sort of just like human adjacent, but they have like weird, you know, alien technology and culture, but they're a lot like humans in a way. They have these funny candy corn horns, and they all have names with 6 letters in them. So the story begins within the home planets of these aliens called the Trolls, called Before Us. And somehow on Before Us, this character Mina, this pink bitch, she gets access to the game called Spurb. You know, we don't. It's not really touched upon. Really, Before Us is almost entirely irrelevant to the story, except for these 2 characters who kind of fuck things up later on. But just understand that these characters, these trolls, they play Spurb, and you know. They play Spurb with 12 people. You have Mina and Arania, the 2 main trolls that are from this cadre of weirdos. But there's 12 of them that play Spurb. Normally Spurb should be played by like 2, maybe 3 people, but they have like a fucked up 12-man session. So they play Spurb, and their game session lasts 6.5 years. They really suck at Spurb. Spurb is not supposed to take that long, and they ultimately fail. Partly because of their own like stupidity and just like they're weird, creepy sex fiends who just fuck around and do nothing a lot of the time. But they play Spurb, they fail because they take so long and they're just so bad at the game. But also because of a critical error within their game, within Spurb. There is a villain who we get into later called Lord English. And Lord English glitches their game so that they could have never existed in the first place to play it. So we'll get into the alpha timeline. Spurb wants one consistent timeline. Spurb wants one alpha timeline that is established the moment the universe is created. Everything is predetermined once that universe is made, or reset, as we'll get into later. And because of this, if there's any inconsistencies or broken time loops, the sort of outlying timeline that caused that break in the time loop will eventually just sort of fade into irrelevance and cease to exist, which is a big thing in the epilogues in Homestuck 2. If you don't follow the alpha timeline, if you aren't canon within a narrative, Spurb will just make sure you fade from reality and stop existing. So, the Before Us trolls, they get their game glitched by a big villain named Lord English, so that they will never be able to exist in the first place to play it through ectobiology. Which, you don't really need to understand ectobiology to get the story, but basically, when players are playing the game, they will send those baby versions of themselves riding on the asteroid back to the planet to, you know, then grow up and later play the game and recreate themselves, you know, making a stable time loop. Lord English glitches it so that the Before Us trolls, the 12 aliens who play the game, they could have never existed in the first place to play it. Not a lot of people know this information because the Before Us trolls are pretty much irrelevant, but that's why the Before Us trolls all end up dying. because they suck at Spurb. So their game is unwinnable. They're going to fade from reality because of the glitch. So Arania is like, fuck, I don't want to die. Like, I want to keep existing, at least somehow. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna like do this advanced Spurb tech. Like, we're gonna do this like 6 Street Fighter 5 like max damage combo, and do this thing called the Scratch. The Scratch is like, it's like Enrico Pucci or like Kira's stand power, where they just sort of rewind time, or more so just reset the universe, to like reposition the roles of people within the narrative. And so the Scratch is like, it's like when you sink. It's based off when you sink the cue ball in billiards. You got to reset everything, like you lose basically. That's what the Scratch is. It is a construct within Spurb that lets you like reset a broken game. It's like your soft resetting for a shiny Ponyta. So the Scratch, it is an event that resets their entire universe. These characters will be erased from existence if they remain within that universe when it gets reset. So Mina hatches this little devious plan where it's like, if we stay in the universe, we will be erased from existence. So I'm going to kill everyone so that their ghosts can keep existing in the afterlife. Checkmate. Got it. So Mina kills all her friends in like an explosion. And so they all die, and their ghost consciousnesses are sent to the afterlife reality where they can just kind of fuck around and do whatever forever. And so they initiate the Scratch, and then they go kill themselves. The Scratch occurs, like the Scratch happens here, and then not an entirely new universe, but the entire universe is reset into the funny gray people that most people understand about Homestuck. Does that make sense, students?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so they reset the universe and left the universe so they don't get reset with it. Makes sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. So there's two. I'm so confused. So they did the Scratch, but then like later. So is it bad to be talking about the other Scratch that happened? But is that also the same Scratch? And like when they did it, they did just like both Scratch at the same time.
There are 2 Scratches
like...
within the story. This universe that I'm talking about is the Trolls' home universe. It gets scratched and gets turned to the Trolls. There is a second universe that comes up later after the Trolls win Spurb. Spoilers. But we'll get into that, when we get to it. Alright, so before us is wiped clean. It is like bites the dust, rewound in time, and erased. And so the history of Spurb is reset. We'll get into the actual timeline of stuff later, but, just understand that there was a universe, they reset it, and then it becomes the Alternians, the Trolls. And the Trolls, they go on through the game. It's these versions of their selves, their Dancestor selves, that they sort of like get repositioned in time and get put into this universe. Then, so that's the Trolls universe. That's where the story will take place. Just kind of setting up the universes we're going to visit over the course of the story. These are the characters that reside in each of the universes. You got characters like Carcat and Terezi and the funny Gamzee clown. Honk right now. Honk for Gamzee. Do it. Honk. Gamzee. Yeah! We did it!
Yeah, honk.
Alright, thank you. Pointed horn honker. The second universe that the story takes place in is the Humans universe. And the Humans universe also will later become scratched, like reset, and the characters that the story focuses on shifts. So there's 2 universes: the Trolls universe and the Humans universe. Both are scratched and reset, so there's 2 sets of the same universe: the beta and the alpha versions. Post-scratch, pre-scratch is, so the actual timeline. Oh boy, here we go. Here we fucking go, boys. I already got a little bit into it before this. Any comments before I begin on the timeline? Because this is where shit gets really heavy.
but like I guess like not. There's like a lot to unpack here. I know what we're going
At what
into.
point do like Doom timelines start having stakes within the main plot? Like, I mean, like we already talked about
Never.
the forest, but like
That's-
other offshoot timelines
Doom-
that aren't as
That's
like
that's like
significant.
that's
Doom
like later
timelines will
on
come
with,
in
like,
when
like Act 6.
when time travel becomes more prevalent action that characters take. Mostly things are just going to remain pretty linear for now.
All right.
Dave's Sprite.
Yeah, Dave Sprite, the ghosts becoming actual characters after being dooms. You know, we'll get into all that. Yes,
Did
Liam?
did you, so like while you were talking about how they went to, how the ugly Dancestors, my tuna best boy, went to kill themselves and shit. Did you touch on how the fucking afterlife is like an idea, or whatever, like the dream bubbles are like these things made up by these elder gods?
Yeah, we'll get into that. The afterlife is
Okay,
something
okay.
called the dream bubbles, but like that happens later in the plot line when it's introduced.
Okay, it's
so
way later.
just understand that the ghosts of the characters that originally died are sent to, like, you know, an alternate place where they can still think and exist as like ghosts and not like be wiped from reality, basically. Okay, so the timeline of Homestuck. I've already gotten into it before a little bit. You know, Mina and Arania are the two important trolls of a 12 troll session. They kill themselves to escape their universe reset because their game was unwinnable. And so the universe is reset. And so the planet of before us now becomes Alternia, which is this thing here, this gray planet with 2 moons. And originally, Troll Society in the pre-Scratch universe, the home of Mina and Arania, was pretty normal. Like, it wasn't that crazy. Like, it pretty much functioned like human society. But after the Scratch, things get fucked up and wild. The trolls, like, go feral, and they become really violent and, like, overtly murdery because of 2 key characters. And we'll get into that. So, the universe is reset, and early troll society begins to develop. There are these 12 characters called the Ancestors, which are like versions of the characters that we will meet in the future, that were also sent to the past, that are like their own, like, it's like you're your own grandpa, basically. Like, characters from the future, they're inspired by their ancestors of the past, which are just past versions of themselves that grew up in different conditions. So the Ancestors kind of establish the basis of troll society, and they're controlled by 2 key figures, the Condess and Doc Scratch. The Condess is the ancestor of what was Mina, and how her role has been changed into position. This is Mina, this is the Condess over here. She is like the central villain of the troll society and makes it like really fucked up and twisted. There's another character called Doc Scratch, which is a minion of Lord English, that villain guy that made the first troll universe before us unwinnable. He's just a minion of the guy who did that. And Doc Scratch also, sort of like in the background, sort of pulls the string, sets up dominoes that will fuck up troll society for a reason. Lord English has stakes in making sure that troll society is a certain condition. So the Condess and Doc Scratch really fuck up troll society. It was normal. Now it is like a warmongering galactic empire. The Condess is all about galactic conquests. She takes her army of trolls and just zooms around the galaxy, fucking people up. It's not touched upon really in the story, the exact consequences of that, but just understand the Condess, like, basically warps troll society from basically normal to, like, this warmongering, vicious society of killers. And the consequence of that is that when you are a troll and you grow up from a little baby to an adult, at the moment you're an adult, you are conscripted into the Condess's army. Congratulations, gun in your hand, let's go murder the rest of the universe. If you don't agree, you're slaughtered. So all the adults in troll society are immediately conscripted into the war, which means just children are present on the planet of Alternia, while the Condess and her armies go ravage the rest of their universe. So because it's just little kids that are on the planet, and there's no adults to like help them grow up, there's these creatures called the Luci, which I don't have pictured here, but basically like they're funny little white animals that look after the kids and act as their adults, even though they're like literally wild animals. And the Luci, each troll has a Luci that is like their parent that makes, like feeds them and changes their diapers and whatever. So trolls are raised by these animals, and the basis of troll society is based on two factors: the Luci and the hemospectrum. Each troll is born with a blood color that corresponds to the shade of the rainbow. And the hemospectrum works like a class triangle. Like at the bottom of the triangle are like the red-blooded trolls. If you're a red blood, you're like a slave, peon, shit, nobody, Morrigan, basically. And then at the inverse, the top of the pyramid, you have the fuchsia bloods, which are like the Condesce and like super royalty gods who have like incredible powers. That's another thing. As you go up the ranks of the hemospectrum, you go from the bottom of the triangle to the middle to the top, you gain access to these psychic powers. The higher your blood, the more powerful your psychic abilities, or the potential of your psychic abilities, basically. The psychic abilities of the lower class species, the Lime Bloods, was so powerful that they were all like wiped out by the Condesce because she wanted her her blood type to be the most royal and like the most powerful. But the Lime Bloods rivaled her power, even though despite being lower in the class like pyramid. So she just kills them all, and there's no more Lime Bloods. So there's 11 bloods of trolls basically. So these 12 characters, the funny gray people, these are the characters that will go on to play Spurb and focus on the acts of Act 5 within Homestuck Story. These trolls play Spurb, they all enter the medium, and it's kind of fucked up how their game was set up, because it seems like Spurb had originally intended for them to have 2 sessions, because 2 frog temples, a blue frog temple and a red frog temple, were sent to their planet with, code of the game, with one half in one and one half in the other. It seems like Spurb wanted them to have 2 separate 6-man sessions, because I don't think Spurb is really handled to have 12-man sessions. It wants, to maybe cut that down a little bit. But despite that, they accidentally create a 12-man clusterfuck, like the original universe. And it doesn't matter. The trolls play Spurb, they crush it. The original Trolls session of Spurs lasted 6.5 years. This session of Spurb lasts 4 months. The trolls are crazy good at just being super, destructive and destroying through all of Spurb. Talk amongst yourselves, students.
There are speedrunning
Aaron,
this game. They sure
the
do
best-
hope there's no
And
one
so I
fighting.
smashed the
dream
spaghetti
of-
rock
Shut up.
into my
Shut up.
This
That's
is
enough.
why I turn myself
Quiet.
into
Laser
John
and
Wick.
Quiet.
Laser, Harry
Demerits
Potter
for
stuff.
everyone. Be silent. Be still. Shh. Shush. Pap, 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 shush, shush. As I was saying, the troll society develops. The trolls go on to play Spurb. They destroy it. They're really good at Spurb. So it only takes them 4 months to go through the game. They win. They create their own new universe. They create their Genesis Frog. And so they go on and win Spurb. They do everything right, basically. They kind of do it with violence and killing people, but they go on and they gain the Genesis Frog. The Genesis Frog is the human universe. It is where you are right now. This galaxy, this galactic cluster, this entire universe we are in, that is because the trolls created it from a session of Spurb, right? That is their ultimate reward. So the trolls, they do this, and they're like, great, we're gonna go live in our new universe now. Awesome. They speedrun through the game so as an aside, they speedrun through the game so much, half of them aren't even god tier. They just completely skip that step because they were already so goddamn powerful. But the thing is, they go onto the Genesis platform where the door to their universe is waiting, as you can see here. And as Tarkat, the leader, reaches for the doorknob of their new universe, a mysterious villain known as Jack Noir appears for the first time within the timeline, basically. He just pops in out of nowhere, and it's this crazy, like, dog man that appears over here. And he is ready to just kill everybody. Nobody knows who he is, nobody knows what he's after, he's just here to murder. And Jack Noir is about to do so before these robot versions of one of the characters, Aradia, teleports them all away to an asteroid on the furthest ring. Yes, June, your question.
Now, haven't these guys, hasn't a Jack Noir, what about the Midnight Crew? Like, they're around, right?
I will not touch upon the Exiles or the Midnight Crew within this lecture. They're largely irrelevant to the story, basically. They don't do much.
Okay.
But just understand that there's a guy called Jack Noir. He's got crazy magic powers, and he's here to kill everyone. He teleports in out of nowhere, and he slices through the door of the universe they were going to claim, rendering their session unwinnable. They cannot progress to the new universe. They're trapped forever. So Jack, he comes in, Aradiabot teleports everyone away. Teleports them into a hiding place known as the Furthest Ring, which is like a boundary box of the game. It's like a ring of asteroids, like Saturn. This robot character teleports everyone away, and they just kind of go hide in the meteor. Jack Noir destroys their session, like cuts through the moons of Prospect and Durst, destroys every single planet, because he's just so fucking pissed for some reason. We don't know why. He's just here, and he's just killing everyone. So the trolls, they go and hide in the Furthest Ring. They go and hide in this asteroid. And they're just kind of waiting to die, basically. They're waiting for Jack to find them and kill them all. And they don't know what to do until one character known as Terezi, it gets a message from a human, and they're like, wait, what is this? Who's this message from? This alien being to us? The trolls? The humans? What is this? It turns out, from the universe they created, it's still alive, and their timeline has still, when a universe is created, its entire timeline is established. And within that timeline, one of the humans, who is also playing Spurv at the time, which we'll get into, contacts the trolls in the past after Jack Noir fucks everything up. Dave Strider contacts them, and so the trolls learn of the humans' existence within the next universe. We say, well, Wuzzles, how could they contact them in the past? Like, that doesn't make any sense. The trolls have access to a special, like, chat room technology called Trollian, and this allows them to send, like, AOL Messenger, like, messages at any point in time to themselves, to characters within another universe. It's just a technology they kind of possess for the purpose of the story. It's implied that, Lord English sets up all these weird little things to make sure the timeline remains on the alpha, and, but we'll get into the main villain, Lord English, way later, if at all. So the humans are contacted by the trolls. The trolls troll them throughout their entire, history, like from when they're little babies to growing up to the kids they become later. I should mention that the trolls are they're farces of internet culture. They're called trolls because the internet troll you. They troll face you haha, you're gay, lol, LMFAO. Liam, you have a question? Yes?
It's 2 seconds to just say one of the funny things Vriska does, specifically, this one character.
Well, Vriska kinda...
One second. Vriska fucking... so, over the course of time, they're, fucking with the kids, right? Vriska can, control other trolls' minds to an extent, but, she can do a little bit to, kids, but, not, to, humans.
Specifically...
She can...
Specifically, Vriska's power, she's like a cerulean blood, which means she's pretty high tier in the blood spectrum, the psychic power scale. She can control weak-willed, minded people, or she can just kind of force people to fall asleep with her psychic powers.
Well, yeah, she can only force she can force trolls to fall asleep, but she can only the only thing she can do to humans is force them to fall asleep. And she practices this on one specific character and tricks this character into thinking she has and it's fucking funny.
Yes. Through the use of the Trollian program they use can allow them to view different portions in time. And so Vriska just kind of does this fucked up thing of practicing her powers on this innocent child and like convinces her she has narcolepsy when it's this alien from another universe in the past, or like pseudo past, like trying to mind control her and just sending her to sleep like at random moments in time.
Yeah.
Which leads to a bunch of other plot stuff that I won't really get into. But yeah, so the trolls are hiding on this asteroid from Jack Noir, who's looking for them to kill them. They message the humans they created in the universe they won from Spurb, just sort of influencing things and doing things within the story we'll get into later on. While they're hiding on this asteroid, one of the trolls, Gamzee, this dude here, he gets trolled by Dave Strider, the original human that made the trolls aware of their existence. And the thing with Gamzee is he's kind of twisted. He's kind of fucked up, and he's really into clowns. Liam, if you'd like to yeah, he's really into honking horns and clowns. And it's not only clowns that Gamzee loves; it's specifically the insane clown posse, which is like in our universe, it's like a fucked up music band that is like has these terrible, god-awful lyrics that are like a joke within the story and come up later within the human timeline. Gamzee's really into ICP, even though it predates the entire existence of the ICP in a separate universe. It's just kind of a coincidence that they exist. Or perhaps Gamzee influences the ICP to exist later on. We don't know. I don't know, specifically. So Gamzee, he's really a fan of the ICP. Dave trolls him and sees this like ICP iconography, like he's wearing like the ICP Juggalo face makeup, and Dave's like, dude, you're retarded. You're so stupid. Why would you even like the ICP? Like this, and he shows him a music video of the ICP, and Gamzee like fucking loses it. Like he's like, this is a mockery of my faith, a complete farce of what I believe in, because Juggalos to Gamzee are like a magic, like miracle fucking bullshit like religion, basically. Juggalos are a religion to Gamzee, and Dave makes fun of that religion. This sends Gamzee into a like blood rage. Like he's just so blind with anger, he's ready to start killing everyone. But it's not like a violent anger. He's like really weird and like creepy and conniving, and he like hides in the shadows and honks his horns and stealths around and kills people. So Gamzee, like, he commits this thing called Murderstuck, and this is where all these funny characters you've come to love over the Act 5, he instigates these events that will cause the trolls to just start killing each other. It ends up with 5.5 trolls dead, including Vriska, which we come to later. Any comments on Murderstuck?
In a half? 5.5?
There were originally 12, and 5.5 trolls die due to the instigation of Gamzee.
How do you kill half a troll? How?
We'll get into it.
So
I love Danganronpa.
Actually, take 2 seconds. Gamzee's thing with ICP is like in the troll universe. It is a religion instated by Lord English to perpetuate some bullshit that Jock Scratch is looking over. That's basically all it is. It's a religion. In the troll universe that becomes an act in our universe is reflected as the ICP, which
it's another device used by the villains to radicalize the trolls, essentially.
Yeah, essentially.
So Murderstuck happens. A bunch of trolls just kill each other and die, basically. A troll, Kanaya, gets turned into a vampire. Solix half dies and becomes like half ghost, half troll. But the biggest conflict within Murderstuck, and kind of like the crucible of a lot of what happens within the comic, is this one moment between a troll named Terezi and a troll named Vriska. Vriska has a very complicated relationship with Terezi, and Vriska herself is a really like deep, interesting character study. I hate Vriska, but I love her character. All the characters at this point have very rich characterization that I'm not really getting into here because it's not crucial to the story that you understand these characters just yet. Yes, Morgan, question.
This is not a question, but I just have to make a comment about Vriska.
Uh-huh.
She's trans. She's trans. She's trans. I
No,
won't be
no,
denied
no,
anymore.
no,
She's
no.
trans.
I'm server
No,
muting you.
no.
Ah!
Get fucking destroyed. That's 20 demerits. You're staying after class, you fucking bitch. Stop. No more comments upon Vriska. A single more comment and I will turn you into a marketable Vriska plushie. What the fuck was I saying? Yeah, Terezi versus Vriska. Terezi and Vriska, they have this sort of standoff. Vriska is a god tier, which means she's conditionally immortal. So she's like, hey Terezi, I'm gonna go kill Jack Noir because I'm really powerful and I think I can do it. If I kill this villain, the villain that she ostensibly later creates herself to maintain the alpha timeline and, you know, be the hero. Vriska's like, yeah, I'm gonna go be the hero, I'm gonna go kill Jack Noir and fix everything. Terezi has the powers of the Seer of Mind. She's not an actual god tier, but she can still use her psychic abilities to sort of see into the future. Terezi sees that if Vriska leaves and tries to fight Jack Noir, the super god villain, will completely ignore her and follow the trail she leaves from the meteor they're hiding in back to where all the trolls are still alive. You know, whoever survived Murderstuck. Jack Noir kills all the surviving trolls and then confronts Vriska. And it's just kind of left ambiguous, like Vriska gets everyone killed trying to be the hero, and it's just kind of, it's left there. So that vision of the future ends. And Terezi is like, oh, Vriska, you can't go. You're going to get us all killed. Vriska's like, I don't care, turns her back on Terezi and begins to fly off. But before she can do that, Terezi stabs her in the back, kills her friend Vriska, and because you're conditionally immortal when you're a god tier, and Vriska is god tier, it's kind of ambiguous whether, like, was it a heroic death that Vriska was trying to save all her friends, or was it a just death because she would have inevitably gotten them all killed? It's kind of a very interesting characterization sort of moment. But it's left ambiguous. We don't know if she was heroic or just. She just kind of dies. So Vriska dies. But she kind of doesn't. Cause like this big like important moment in Homestuck, a little thing called Retcon John sort of appears out of nowhere. Much like Jack Noir appears out of nowhere to these trolls, this weird idiot in a blue windsock just pops up out of nowhere. And before Terezi can kill Vriska, he just kind of punches Vriska in the face. So this John guy just pops in, punches Vriska in the face, and says, you guys are being idiots. Vriska, you could have just knocked her out and pacified her. And then John teleports out. Like, in the context of the story here, it doesn't really make much sense. Like, who's this John guy? We don't even know who he is. But, like, that's what happens in the timeline. Like, originally, in the original timeline, Terezi kills Vriska, but in the retconned timeline that we'll get into later, John pops in, prevents Vriska's death, so that she can continue to do things in the future, instead of being dead. Liam, question.
Dude, this kind of like raises the question I've been like wondering about. Is like, do you think Homestuck would be a better story if it was like told like straight through? Like, I think it would be a lot more interesting. I think I might even go and edit that myself later.
A better story? I don't know. I cannot comment on the quality of that. A more accessible story? For sure. I would not be hosting this lecture if the story was held in a linear fashion, right?
Yeah.
So, Vriska's death is prevented. The surviving trolls are just kind of hanging out in the asteroid, and there's this thing in, like, way out in space, beyond the bounds of the medium that they're in, way out in paradox space, which is the reality that Spurb takes place in. There's this little green blip. There's this thing called the green sun that appears, and the trolls see this and are like, oh hey, look at that, let's go over there. And so Solix, this guy who's now half dead after the events of Murderstuck, kind of like almost gets killed but is still half okay, he uses the last of his psychic energy to kill himself and also hurl the entire meteor they are on, hurl this meteor that they've been living on here, hurls it towards the green sun, which we'll get into. So, Yeah, so Solix dies, the rest of the surviving trolls, including Vriska now, after the retcon, get sent towards the Green Sun. And so that is where the trolls sort of universe timeline ends. And we enter the human timeline. Yeah, baby, this is Act 1 to 4, the real good shit. This is where the story actually begins. Everything I told you prior is like inserted halfway into the story. This is where like John Egbert, like this is the first thing you see in the comic. This guy, this thing. So the humans' Earth. It is created by the Troll Session. It's the universe we live in now. The trolls beat Spurb. Excuse me. They created the Genesis Frog, and within it was our universe of Homestuck. So, Spurb begins the alpha timeline for the humans' Earth. A frog temple is sent towards a remote island next to a volcano. A company called Skyanet eventually develops what's it? They get the code from inside the frog temple, put it on a disk, distribute the beta. Bam! Kids are playing Spurb all over the Earth. The 4 destined kids to play Spurb are up here. Let me go back. John Egbert, this fool here, this monkey, Rose Lalonde, Dave Strider, and Jade Hartley. Those are the 4 main characters that the story focuses upon for the early humans universe. These 4 friends, they start up Spurb, they play through the game. A bunch of like crazy bullshit happens where their planet is dying and they're entering the universe to escape the meteors. It's a wonderful journey that you should all experience for yourself, and I'll get into that later on. So the kids enter Spurb. They escape Earth. They enter the medium. They begin playing Spurb. I'm going over so many parts of the story right now. I'm jumping over huge leaps in chapters and like text and dialogue and characters and shit like that. Because you should just go and discover this stuff for yourself. It's not crucial that you understand all the things that happen within their session of Spurb. A Spurb session is like, you start a Minecraft world and all your friends go in the Minecraft world. That's like a session of Spurb. Like you're playing the game together with your friends. So the kids play Spurb. Now, one crucial aspect of Spurb that I've regretted to neglect at this point is the element of prototyping. You know the final boss guy, that Black King, all the way back up here, this dude? Each time a player enters the game, basically because of actions they take within the tutorial, they make their final boss stronger. They make them more powerful by just entering the game because of actions they take. And if you take the wrong ones, you can make your final boss really strong. Like, if you, say, there's an action called spriting. Like, if you prototype your sprite, you throw an object into the sprite that becomes, like, your guide for the game. So, like, if you take a piggy bank and you throw it into your kernel sprite, you get, like, a floating piggy bank that talks to you and says, oh, you should go do this in the game, and guides you through the game. If you threw that piggy bank into the prototype and then entered the game, your final boss will have the physical attributes of a piggy bank and have like piggy bank based abilities, essentially. So all you need to understand is prototyping makes the final boss stronger. And specifically, it's the ring that is on the final boss's finger. That's the source of his prototyping power. It only works on game NPCs, but any game NPC can use the Ring of Power. There's this guy called Jack Noir. He is, or Spade Slick, or, whatever. He is the original guy who destroyed the Troll Session. And his inception, his creation, how he came to be, begins in the human universe. The universe the Trolls created. Jack Noir later time travels back in time to go fuck up the Trolls because of events that we'll get into. But understand, there's this guy called Jack Noir. He steals the ring from the Black Queen. For this reason. John Egbert prototypes a funny clown doll into the game. So the final boss looks like a clown. That's why like all these characters are wearing like jester costumes and shit, right? Jack Noir hates this. It makes him so mad. He begins to overthrow the entire Dursite monarchy and just kills everyone. He gets so pissed, he goes on a huge rampage of just killing anything he fucking sees because he hates being dressed like a clown, basically. Clowns tend to cause mass-wide destruction all throughout the linearity of Homestuck. It is a crucial plot point to understand how terrible clowns are. So, yeah. Jack Noir, he gets dressed like a clown, he hates it, he overthrows the monarchy, steals the prototyping ring that is the source of power, and, gains the attributes of whatever the kids prototype. Now, remember that thing I talked about? The first Guardian? The sort of characters that watch the baby versions of the kids and let them grow up? There's a first Guardian specifically is a character with magic green powers. It's normally like some kind of animal. Doc Scratch, this guy over here, who did some troll society fuckery, he's a minion of Lord English, and he is a first Guardian. He has magic like green energy powers that are used all throughout the comic. Bequerel is a dog that is also gifted with these first Guardian abilities. So Bequerel has these like magic green sun based powers. He can like teleport, he can shoot like PK Fire, PK Rock, all kinds of crazy shit. And Jade, one of the players who's who her guardian is Bequerel. Like Bequerel oversees her growing up and, being able to play Spurb. She, through a bunch of like plot fuckery that again I won't really get into, prototypes of Bequerel, giving Jack Noir's ring the power of a first Guardian. This has disastrous consequences. It turns Jack Noir from like a funny little chess man into this crazy looking dog dude who looks sick. Much like our home killer dog and the creation of the pound.
Dog.
It's literally Killer Dog, which is just a purple Bequerel.
Killer Dog is the pre-scratch.
Yeah, yeah. So Jack gains the powers of a first Guardian. So he has these crazy, overpowered, like reality-destroying green magic powers, and he uses this to like just devastate everybody. He's going to destroy the entire universe with something called the Red Miles, which is like a magic ability that just like the users of the prototyping ring can have. And combined with first Guardian abilities, it can destroy entire universes. Jackus is so pissed, he's ready to kill everybody. Literally everybody. So the kids playing their Spurb session, it's now unwinnable, because they made Jack too strong by prototyping him with Bequerel. Kind of a bad idea, but because of plot fuckery, they had to do this, because, they have to create a stable time loop. So the kids are like, well, fuck, our game is unwinnable. Let's scratch it. Let's bite the dust, reset everything back to zero, undo it all. But they don't want to die. Like, they don't want to be reset and die. So they also hatch a plan to escape the universe, to escape the destruction of everything with the Red Miles and Jack Noir. So I won't go exactly into it. Just go watch Cascade. But a bunch of events happen. They use a thing called the Scratch Construct, which is like this big device that allows you to reset the universe. They scratch it like disc jockey, like record scratch, their Scratch Construct, and the reset of the universe begins. Yes, the Beat Mesa. Thank you, Resident Smagnol. It's called the Beat Mesa in this session at least. I don't think it's called the Beat Mesa in other ones. But the Beat Mesa, it resets the session. It begins the scratch, and the kids sort of employ their plans to escape this sort of reality. Jade goes God tier and uses her. Jade also fuses with her dog, which has disastrous consequences for the character of Jade and the story much later on. They get really creepy and weird. But Jade fuses with her dog, or I think I have a picture up here. Yeah, Jade fuses with her dog and gets like little dog ears and a dog tail, and she gets first guardian powers as well. So not only is she god tier with psychic space powers, she also has the powers of like a super green god. Crazy. Yeah, so Jade uses her powers to like suck up all the planets in their game session and shrinks them down so that she can carry them beyond the universe to the next one. So two of the kids escape through the universe through the fourth wall, which is like a device that lets you look through into other universes. Won't get into it. Two of the kids just kind of fly out of the reach of the universe into the just like the emptiness of paradox space, where like universes can pop up and disappear. And the universe is reset. Everything goes back to zero. Everyone's fine because they all pretty much eject out of the universe before it's reset, much like how the original characters killed their consciousnesses to go to the afterlife. Oh, shoot, I neglected to mention. Back up here in the troll session, a troll named Feferi does this thing called she creates the dream bubbles, which is the afterlife in which like if you die in any timeline, your consciousness goes into the afterlife. So like you can see a ghost version of yourself that died in, you know, like another circumstance. Like say like you die in a car accident. If you go to these dream bubbles in your sleep, you can see that version of yourself that died in a car accident. And so there's just like a billion fucking ghosts from every conceivable timeline that died, just kind of hanging out in the dream bubbles. And it functions as like an afterlife for the characters. Okay. Common students, just taking a break to sip my water. Talk amongst yourselves.
I wanna go to the dream
I wish I
bubble.
was.
So
Yeah, I
a
wish I
funny
was
thing
dead and
about
went to
the dream bubbles is Fefri created. So I might be summarizing this wrong. That shit was created because Fefri's Lusai or whatever is like a literal elder god or whatever, and so like Fefri like commutes with her elder god Lusai and then other elder gods. Or she gets in communication with them. It also has something to do with like the Dursites. Like when you look up past like up Durs or whatever. I can't remember it, and like they fucking commune with these elder gods because like the elder gods are also scared of that big fucking green asshole Lord English, so they help the ghosts and they make the bubbles because they kindly ask the elder gods like, hey, please, we don't want to fucking go crazy by looking too long at like fucking forever darkness or whatever it is. It's terrifying. Basically for every season, like, this is fucking gay, please make the bubbles, please, fuck, I don't want to look at this shit, fuck, god damn it. And you know, then they get their wonderful little bubbles, which are like fucked up like Alzheimer's memories that you can walk around in.
Oh yeah.
That
I
sounds
wonder.
nice.
I do have a question regarding dream bubbles. Are dream bubbles gonna are these things going to persist in the post game?
The dream bubbles are outside the any reality. Like they're their own place. They will not be scratched.
Okay,
They will not be
so
reset.
it doesn't get affected by anything happening within the game. Okay.
Ever.
Well, they just won't be scratched and reset. Characters
Okay.
can't influence these dream bubbles later on because they're just kind of floating in the emptiness of paradox space, which is
So
like
like so doesn't yeah, the bubbles can be affected. That's where like a very big important final thing happens. Am I correct?
yeah, they can be affected. It's just that they won't
And like
be.
they start
They won't be
because
reset.
plot shit. These dream bubbles start getting fucking destroyed. So continue. Double death.
Yes. So, the kids scratch their universe, positions are reset. The original Guardians, the parents of the kids, get sent later in the timeline, and the kids get sent earlier. So the kids are their parents, and their parents become the kids, if that makes sense. But the story of the post-scratch Earth kind of takes place in 2 points in time. An earlier period in time, when Earth is slightly normal, and then a much later period in time, when it gets fucked up by the Condes. Remember that? This like evil, kind of sexy purple space bitch from the Troll Society that made it really like violent and, you know, conscripted every single adult to go conquer the galaxy. Well, the Condes sees the post-scratch kids universe and is like, hey, I'm gonna go conquer you guys now too. So the Condes flies through over paradox space, the emptiness void where all this takes place, and enters the human universe at a point. I mean that happens later on, but like she enters, and then human society is pretty much normal for a while. Things go on. That is the time in which Jane and Jake are sort of hanging out. That's where their part of the story takes place. Later, the Condess um, will fuck with the human timeline, but the other two sets of kids, Dirk and Roxy, these characters over here. Let me grab my pointer. Dirk and Roxy, these two characters over here, they are in the future version of Post-Grant Earth. Jane and Jake, these guys over here, they're in the like past version, not past, but like present version of Earth. They're in normal human society. The Condess arrives, fucks everything up, creates the Dirk and Roxy's fucked up timeline, basically. So during Jane and Jake's time, Dirk and Roxy just kind of, while communicating and chatting, they're going to also play Spurb. They have the Spurb Alpha that they pirated off of somewhere, and Dirk and Roxy are going to time travel back in time so that Jake, Jane, Dirk, and Roxy can all enter at the same time because of timeline fuckery we'll get into. So Jane and Jake, they're in their present timeline. Dirk and Roxy appear, and they all enter Spurb. So they go into the medium. While they go into the medium, in the past, there's still shit going on, like present Earth develops as they leave and go play Spurb in the past. So the Condess arrives. She begins like sort of subjugating human society, trying to make it more like troll society, because she's just like a galactic conqueror. She just wants to control everybody and fuck things up, right? So the Condess sort of ruins the human timeline to a point where it's like, you see here, Guy Fieri kills 5 billion people. This is not a joke. The Condess sort of conscripts a fucked up Guy Fieri to her cause, and Guy Fieri just kind of like kills a bunch of people because that's what the Condess wants. So, the condescension of Earth occurs, and everyone's fucked. Like, 5 billion people die, humanity is pretty much gone. And that is when, yes, Phil, you have a question.
So basically, Earth gets Alternia-2'd.
Well, kinda.
That...
Like, the Condess wants that to happen, but because humans aren't really compatible with, like, troll way of life, everyone just sort of dies, because the Condess doesn't really care about them.
Dang.
Yes, Fizzy.
What happens to the very popular Food Network television show Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives?
I have no idea.
By Guy Fieri.
I have no clue. Hopefully nothing. I hope it remains the way as it is forever, even though Guy Fieri is a literal Hitler figure. Liam, you have a question?
I forgot I was gonna ask. Holy shit.
Great, thank you. 2 demerits. Fucking die. So, the Earth is condescent, and because it's destroyed, the Condess, she tries and imports trolls into human society, like actual trolls, but it doesn't really work. She imports carapations, like Spurb constructs, the NPCs, the little black and white chess people that you'll see throughout the comic. She imports them into Earth society, and they kind of chill out, like they don't die at least, like the trolls and the humans do under the Condess's rule. So they're just kind of a bunch of carapations hanging around. Dirk and Roxy's meteors land at this point in the timeline, in the future, after Earth has been fucked up. They grow up, like, in these estranged, like, Dirk grows up on an oil rig in the middle of the ocean, nowhere. Roxy, she grows up in a patch of carapations who were imported by the Condess to sort of fill up her new Earth. And they contact Jane and Jake in the past through technology gifted to them by a character named Calliope, which we will get into a little bit later. So, Dirk and Roxy, they communicate with the past versions of Jane and Jake, eventually do some timeline fuckery in a cool flash, and teleport back into where they originally met up with Jane and Jake in the present and played Spurb. Huh? What? What are you saying, Liam? Speak up.
You said Calliope?
Calliope, yes.
There's
a character named Calliope.
No, I know who you're talking about. Okay, every other motherfucker either says Calliope or Calliope. I've never heard a motherfucker
It's
say Callipy.
It's Callipy. If you
No,
say anything,
it's
okay, that you're being
no.
circumvented.
You're getting a
You're being
fucking
banished from the
demerit.
fucking. Yep. Thought so, bud. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to crack the whip on you, student. It is Callipy. Be quiet, motherfucker. I didn't mention this, but a future version of Dave like kills the ICP members, and it's sick. The only two characters you need to, like, the only characterization I will to go into about is Dirk and Dave, because they're sick. Dirk and Dave are just so cool. We kin Dirk and Dave, okay? There's a reason why you see a million Daves at every con. It's because Dirk and Dave are the fucking coolest. Dirk will later become a little bit transphobic, and Dave will become a little bit a robot later on. But don't worry about him.
And also gay. Dave turns gay.
Dave,
No.
God, ignore it. We won't spoil.
And he's trans. And he's trans.
No.
Dave, she,
no,
her.
no.
Dave, she, her. Everybody unmute. Dave, she,
Dave,
her.
she, her.
Dave, she, her. Dave, she, her. Dave, she, her. Dave, she, her.
Silence. That's enough. That's enough. You had your fun. You're all staying after class. You're all being given extra fucking homestuck homework.
Teacher.
Did you raise your fucking hand? I didn't think so. Shut your mouth.
I raised my hand.
Continue the lecture.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just have one thing to say.
Yeah? Thank you. So, the Red Miles eventually come to this future version of Earth from Jack and destroy it. So, you know, the Condess is like, well, fuck, leaves. Red Miles blow it up. There's no more Earth anymore. The kids' session of Spurb, after they play it and enter, gets really fucked up. They basically just kind of sit there and do nothing for a long time, because it takes the original characters from the Trolls universe and the Humans pre-Scratch universe 3 years to show up to the new Scratch universe, just kind of arbitrarily to age up the characters for some reason, whatever. So the post-Scratch kids, the Guardians now children, are stuck in a doomed session, because in Spurb, if you don't have a specific combination of characters, like a time player and a space player to like help create the next universe, you just get stuck in a doom session, which means you can't progress. Specifically, it's because they don't prototype anything before they enter, which means Skya never evolves into the battlefield. Don't worry about it. Just understand that the new kids are kind of fucked because they can't win the game. They can't even progress because they made some crucial errors before they even started the game, because it was predestined to do so by the alpha timeline.
They really pissed it off.
Yeah, so they kind of play through their session. They don't really do anything for a while, and they just kind of sit there and wait for everyone else to show up. And they do. The Trolls and the pre-Scratch kids, oh my god, arrive to the session. And so they get there, and this is where in the comic things like Act 5, based. Everyone loves the Great People. Acts 1 to 4, based. Everyone loves John Egbert. Act 6, people like Dirk. Jane and Jake and, like, Drunk Roxy are completely, like, unlistenable. Like, all their dialogue is pretty bad. There's some good moments, there's some good parts, but for the most part, a lot of the dialogue in Act 6 is bad, but the arts is still pretty based. Dirk is amazing. He's my favorite character in Homestuck. But this is the part in the story where things get really convoluted and really takes a dip in quality, I feel. Yes, Smragnall.
I just want to comment that I hate X6. There's too many people and they all say too much stuff all the time and it's really annoying and they all suck.
Yep. That is the common consensus you will see among Homestuck fans, that late X6, or rather just middling X6, is not good. Arguably, all of X6 isn't good, but I still think there's some good parts within the Alpha Kids. Morgan first. Yes, question.
I wanted to say that X6 is cool.
All of it?
There's a funny dance in there,
Oh my
and there's
God.
like cool.
Everyone,
teen
boo this
drama.
man. Boo, boo, boo him out of the stage.
And
Boo,
then they like, and then some of them kiss,
boo,
then they cut a guy's head off. Box.
get off the stage.
Your noise.
Take your seat, Sue. Thank you so much for your
Fine.
input, Morgan.
Boo.
You fucking whore. So,
Huh? What?
shut up. So as I was saying, the kids enter their session. They do nothing because it's a Doom session. They can't win. They kind of fucked up. The trolls and pre-scratch kids arrive. They sort of just teleport in through paradox space, through their own methods and means after escaping the previous scratch. Oh, sorry. Fizzy, you had a question, yes. Sorry.
Are we going to address the weird racial coding of one character in particular? Roxy.
No. Nope.
Okay.
No. No. I'm not getting into characters. I'm just focusing on the meat. The fucking meat of the story. No candy. This is an all-meat speedrun of the Homestuck Timeline. Okay? Oh, God. All the characters converge in this timeline. The Condess also appears. She kind of jumps in. She mindbreak Dojins, Jade and Jane, into these, like, nonsensical villains. Grimbark's, like, her design is based, I guess. Jade's design is just based, and this is just an evil Jade. People like mind-broken Jade, too, or Jane, rather. Whatever. Their designs are cool. They suck. These villains are terrible. They're written awful. Nobody likes them as characters. They suck. And they just further complicate the story. So the Condess kind of mind controls them and has them just fuck with the characters and mess things up. Because the Condess wants to take control of, the session. She wants to make her own universe. The Condess, she just wants to take things over. And so, another villain also appears, Arania. She's from the dream bubbles in the afterlife. She gains mortality again through the use of the Ring of Life. Arania also appears and wants to become the main character, I guess. She fucks things up. Everybody dies. As Arania and the Condess fight for control, Arania being the troll from the very, very original session that started this whole daisy chain. She died and is now back through the use of the Ring of Life from the dream bubbles. Arania and the Condess, they fight for control over this session, and all the human characters just kind of lose. Everybody dies. Game over. All the characters that you love, that you know, pretty much dead. They die in this timeline. Later on, this timeline, it basically ends. Everything dies. The Alpha timeline, everyone is dead. Game over. Eventually, it will be healed. It will go back to being an okay timeline that later just becomes even worse than it was when it became game over. But we'll get into that later. John Egbert, the main character of Homestuck, takes Roxy Lalonde, one of the kids, Rose's mom, now a kid, from her session, and they're the last couple survivors from this kerfuffle. And John, he takes Roxy to his planet, and they do some fuckery there with Typheus and, playing the organ, and Typheus allows them to escape the narrative. John and Roxy pseudo-escape the story of the comic and just go into this white space where it's called the inter-adventure space or something, but they escape the story. And John and Roxy are whoa, this is crazy. Cool. And John eventually comes back to the session somehow and confers with a bunch of dead characters in the dream bubbles, the afterlife. I'm gonna gloss over a lot of the story here because the end of Act 6 is so messy and fucked up, but we're getting to the end here. So John and Roxy escape the narrative. John leaves Roxy in the narrative so he can go fix the game over timeline and try and set them back on the correct path. John leaves, gains the power of retcon, and he can time travel back in the past. It basically is just time travel, but he can time travel back in the past and change things and not have to worry about unstable time loops. Basically, I think that's how it works. I don't know. It's kind of ambiguous. But John has the power to retcon, literally fix Andrew Hussey's hack writing and just go back and undo stuff. but he doesn't really do a good job. He basically just listens to Terezi, who she's just like, okay, fix this. And Terezi, by changing key moments in her life and fixing her own personal problems, John sort of rectifies the game over timeline and creates an offshoot that they can win from. So John creates a retcon timeline specifically through like saving Vriska. Like remember all the way back up here, Terezi versus Vriska, you know, the big moment. Vriska punches, or rather, sorry, John punches Vriska, knocks her out, stops her from killing all the trolls, and Vriska just kind of chills and goes on to help fix the timeline. So all the characters begin to converge. John has fixed the timeline. People are setting things up. The gears are in motion. People are getting in places. It's a really messy ending where people are just really, everything's just trying to, there's so many fucking characters and they're all talking about nothing. Why does Jane talk to Nana Sprite? Why do we... they all get together. And there's a character I have been neglecting to mention this entire time, because over the course of the story, he does basically nothing. And that is Lord English. Lord English is played up to be the major villain of Homestuck, but he basically, like, never shows up or does anything. He's touted to be the central, like, he's been pulling the strings behind the things, behind the story, rather, to make sure, like, subtle events happen the way they're supposed to, because he is the Lord of Time. Lord English, he has time powers. He's all throughout the timeline. And Lord English, he's the super powerful god that is a slurry of other various characters that we won't really get into. I don't know how much I'm even going to talk about the cherubs, but like basically understand there's another alien race, even beyond the post-Scratch Kids session that take residence in Earth. This alien race, it's a one body, two brain scenario. So there's two personalities inside one cherub body, and there's a girl personality, Calliope, and a boy personality, Caliborn. And Caliborn kills Calliope. Calliope dies and goes into the afterlife. She will later come back in other various ways, but don't worry about it. Caliborn takes over. He pesters the characters throughout their session and just kind of fucks with them. Caliborn is awesome. He's one of the redeeming factors of Late Act 6. He's a misogynist, he's a retard, he's really violent, he loves murder, he loves just boys being boys and hates women. And he just does some fuckery, and he later becomes Lord English. Caliborn turns into Lord English / our guy. And Lord English, he's this super powerful, unkillable god who wants to control reality. And he doesn't show up for most of the comic, basically, until, like, they don't fight him until the very, very end. Like, the last thing that happens, they actually fight Lord English, or encounter him in any way. And characters comment all through the story, like, we don't even know who Lord English is. Like, he's supposed to be the supervillain, we've never even met him. So, Caliborn transforms into Lord English through a thing called Caliborn's Masterpiece, which I might get into a little bit later. And so, Lord English, Lord English's desire, I believe, is to just, like, kill everybody. Specifically, Calliope, who is the alternate, personality of himself, who he killed to control the singular body they shared. They're like headmates, but one ate the other. So, Caliborn becomes Lord English. Lord English wants to kill the afterlife version of Calliope, because even though she's dead, even though she's just kind of flying around in the dream bubbles, she still has the power to kill Lord English by destroying the green sun, which is the source of his power. So if Calliope kills the green sun, then Caliborn, or rather Lord English, will lose his powers and he won't be able to control reality. So Caliborn, sorry, I keep saying Caliborn. Caliborn and Lord English are different characters. Don't get that twisted. Caliborn is a victim. Lord English is a worthless villain. Lord English goes around the afterlife from dream bubble to dream bubble, just destroying them, just killing millions and billions of ghosts from alternate timelines that failed, just trying to kill Calliope. And like he just does nothing. Lord English does nothing for the entire comic but kill ghosts. And so like all the kids, Lord English, he's there, he arrives, he's there to kill and fuck up the session. Condes is also there in the session, another villain who is ready to kill everybody, take over the session. They have similar motives. There's a bunch of other little villains. Jack Noir, remember that guy? He followed the Troll's asteroid flying through space all the way to this session. Jack Noir just wants to fucking kill everybody because he's an insane maniac. And so Jack Noir is also here to just start killing people. There's the Peregrine Mendicant, which I won't really mention, but there's a white Jack Noir, basically, who's trying to also kill him. So there's a bunch of villains. There's a bunch of, like, all the loose ends are being tied together. We're finally ending Homestuck. This is the end of a decade. Spragnall also says, yes, there are 2 other mini Jacks that are ostensibly minions of Lord English. Well, one's a minion, one wants to kill him. Don't worry about it. All this to say, the end of Homestuck, just basically, like, all the villains are defeated, there aren't really any casualties, and the kids just win. The kids just do a good job. John got the bullshit retcon powers, fixed the timeline, everyone gets together and just wins. They just beat all the villains. Lord English, he's supposed to be immortal, but Calliope does the thing where she removes the green sun, so he becomes vulnerable. Vriska unleashes something called the Juju, which originally gave John his retcon powers. And the Juju are just like powerful time artifacts that can do like MacGuffin stuff. And so Vriska releases the Juju. The Juju does something ambiguous to the villain Lord English, and he supposedly dies, maybe, don't know. All the villains are defeated, the kids win. They, through a use of their amassed resources and like fuckery, they send a new Genesis Frog into the post-scratch kids sessions Skya, the Crucible of Creation. The Genesis Frog becomes a thing, and they create Universe C, Earth C, which is over here. Happy ending. Thanks for playing. They did it. Homestuck's over. Everyone clap. Homestuck is over. We did it. We got to the end.
Oh, thank God.
You bastards. You fools. You liars. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up.
Oh,
No
I'm
English.
so glad Homestuck is over, and I'll never have to read anything Homestuck related
God,
ever again.
Homestuck's
Homestuck
over.
is over.
Everyone got a happy ending. It's ended. It's finally over. Oh my God, the end of a decade.
Yay.
Or 10 years or something. Homestuck went on for a very long time. Finally, everyone has a happy ending. What's the... Oh...
Am I gonna make it home in time?
Alright, so...
John gets fucking laid.
Yeah, John! Woo!
Car sex.
This is the epilogues.
Trozy's not fat, I'll kill
Shut
you.
up! Homestuck has ended. Everyone had a happy ending, and then this fucking hack, Andrew Hussey, ruins it. He introduces this principle of relevance, which is basically, if the characters are not engaging in canonical activities, they will fade from relevance and just die, basically, and stop existing. So Andrew Hussey wrote this book called the Homestuck Epilogues, which is split into 2 distinct paths. A lot of people do not like the epilogues, and I think it is completely justified to not have them. Every single take on the epilogues is a valid one, because, you know, it's a legitimate criticism of Homestuck and, you know, the end of the story, or, you know, the post-end of the story. You can technically just consider everything that happens after the original Homestuck as not canon. You know, it's literally Homestuck beyond canon. You know, this is no longer really a part of the story. But it's still going on, and we're still here talking about it, aren't we? So, this is what happens in the epilogues. Well, rather, I should say what they are. Again, there are two. It's a written book. It's fucking all this gross shit that has in it. It's a book about the kids in their universe after Earth is defeated, or rather, after Earth is won, and they travel to their universe and live happily, kinda, for a while. There's also the Snapchats. Don't fucking worry about it. So it's split into two distinct parts: meat and candy. What you have just witnessed, what you just listened to, is an entirely meat lecture of the Homestuck Timeline. Meat is all the crucial events, like all the substance of the story, that is things that keep the plot going. The meat of the story, the meat on the bone. The candy part of the story is characters, having fun conversations, or alchemizing funny objects, or doing things that don't really progress the story, but still build upon it, right? So the epilogue's purpose is to show the sort of nature that the meat of a story and the candy of a story, these metaphorical concepts, how they must coexist within a narrative to create a healthy story for characters to exist in. If you only have meat, or you only have candy, the experience will be ruined. And it's also kind of a message upon how Andrew Hussey is passing on the keys to his fanfic writers. He's passing the torch to the fans of Homestuck, who are now going on to create Homestuck 2, all that. Andrew Hussey's still, I believe he's still working on a little bit, giving them a guideline. But yeah. Does anyone want to give their thoughts? Liam, you have a question? I just want some thoughts on the epilogues.
I love it. I love it when Andrew Hussey's like, you know what? I'm gonna give this proper. I'm gonna let fans write it, and I love it when the fans inject their fucking dog dick fetish. Fucking
why?
I don't know,
Why did they kill Jade?
But still, they fucking made Jade terrible. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Everyone in the epilogues.
Funny, Jane's a fucking Nazi. Jane's a fucking not even a cool Nazi. Just a shitty one.
God in heaven, kill me now. Strike me where I stand. Yes. The epilogues have a lot of weird, creepy fanfiction, sex, and weird, crazy stuff that Andrew Hussey specifically endorsed. Andrew Hussey wanted this weird fanfiction.
I think
stuff.
he wanted to play it like it was ironic. I think he was supposed to be jokes yeah, this is funny.
Well,
it just wasn't. It just fucking was not. It was just kind of fucking lame.
The epilogues are really gross. And I will say that I think there is good ideas here. There is some good stuff, the whole central conceit of you have to give your audience both meat and candy narratively to have a healthy story, and this is what happens when you don't. This is the failures of fanfic authors. But yeah,
that kind of raises the question: was Hussey just letting these people make an ass out of his property so he could laugh at them by himself, or does he just look, I need a little bit of cash?
Silence.
Silence.
I command you to be silent right the fuck now. Be silent.
Okay, I'm sorry, teacher.
Thank you, Snoot. So I'm just gonna briefly go over what happens in the epilogue book through each timeline. Group consensus. Which one do you want first? You want meat or candy? Huh? Which one do you want?
I am a carnivore.
We should do candy first.
Actually, I do not want to end on candy. Can we do candy first?
Oh, I'm not even looking at the PowerPoint.
No, I think we should do candy first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Silence. Thank you.
Fascism.
So we'll do candy first, because candy's the shortest one, because I haven't read candy. I just kind of glossed over, the important bits. Candy, a bunch of gross sex shit happens. Basically, John refuses to go back and finish off Lord English. He just kind of goes, I'm just gonna hang out in Earthsea and do some funny political intrigue with all my pals. John and Roxy get married, they have a kid. Dave, Carcat, and Jade engage in a weird polygamous three-way. Calliope is also a member of John's marriage in a weird polygamous three-way. Jane, Gamzee, and Jake are in a weird polygamous three-way. You noticing a theme? And Dirk is so distraught with all the uncomfortable sex that is happening, he kills himself. And this makes Dirk extremely powerful. Because now that Dirk is dead, his like consciousness gets projected through all of reality, and his meat self, the Dirk from the meat timeline, becomes like hyper aware of the narrative, and he gains like fourth wall sensing powers to the point where he can literally influence events of the story by like writing them down, which we'll see more in Homestuck Beyond Canon 2, whatever. Other things in Candy, Jane becomes like a Nazi, like a literal fascist. She leads a campaign against trolls to like segregate them and basically put them down in society, kind of like the Condess with the hemospectrum. Cardcat leads a rebellion against Jane to prevent the subjugation of trolls and their repression in society. And a bunch of other stuff happens. Whatever.
Right.
One important event, Dave talks to the holographic projection of President Obama. This makes Dave extremely powerful. Dave, like, he gains that same Dirk level power where, like, he gains super awareness of all his iterations within every timeline, and so this happens to Rose Lalonde as well. Dirk, Rose, and Dave all later sort of gain this power, where Rose and Dave are so after they gain this knowledge of the timelines, their bodies have to be put into robots so that their minds can sustain like the psychological strain that being aware of every single iteration yourself across all timelines puts upon a person. So Calliope, there's a version of Calliope that died in the afterlife that became God tier. That version of Calliope is the Candy control of the story, and she wants to stop Dirk in the meat timeline. In the meat timeline, John goes back to stop Lord English. He teleports to the game over timeline, in which like John had to use his retcon powers to fix. He teleports to that timeline and sort of fixes stuff somehow. I forget exactly, but he zaps Jade's Grimbarkness away, picks up Dave and Rose, and the other 4 Alpha Kids. These 8 God tiers go and fight Caliborn at Caliborn's masterpiece. And like Caliborn's masterpiece is like this weird Vine claymation thing that describes how John, Dave, Rose, and Jade were put inside the Juju that would later be used to destroy Lord English. Basically, just understand that John, Dave, and Rose and Jade get trapped in a box for like millennia, and then they're let out by Vriska in the final battle that happened at the end of Homestuck to defeat Lord English, and they fight him. They all die horribly and get killed and fall through cracks in reality, except for John, who gets like bitten by Lord English, and a little tooth gets put in his belly and poisons him. Nepeta Sprites drags Lord English into the collapsing green sun black hole and kills Lord English. So, yeah. So, John is left in this broken timeline. He fucks around. He finds Terezi in the void. They have sex in the back of a car, basically. And then John dies. Dirk, with his power over the narrative, writes John to die by poisoning of Lord English's tooth. A bunch of other shit happens in Meat, who cares? The important thing in Meat is Dirk, now his ultimate self, and hyper-aware of the timeline, and has the power to manipulate the narrative, is like, okay, if we don't do something, if we don't become canon again, we are all going to die. So that means this story needs a new villain. It needs a new Lord English to perpetuate the plot and keep people reading, keep people interested. So he justifies his transphobia as basically like, well, it's making us all canon if I'm the villain. Basically. Based. So Dirk, he takes Rosebot, who is now hyper aware of all her, iterations within fucking time, and Terezi, who now has the corpse of John in her inventory, and are like, you guys come with me, we're gonna go to a new planet, and we're gonna go perpetuate Spurb. We're gonna go start a new session of Spurb so that the story can keep focusing on this iteration of universes. And that is where Homestuck 2 takes off. It is where the meat and candy timelines end. The candy guys are chasing after Dirk to stop him from doing evil things in the narrative, I guess. Even though Dirk is, like, he's kind of based because he's becoming the villain to perpetuate the story so that all his friends, and mostly himself, can keep existing. So, I don't know. Guys, that's it. That is the entire timeline of Homestuck, start to finish. I glossed over a million billion things about Homestuck just to give you the most bare skeleton possible. Yeah, that's it. Homestuck is over. Congratulations. You did it. You survived
Hey,
to the end of
Woo!
Homestuck.
Yeah, we did.
Wait.
Now there's nothing else, right? There's
Yeah,
not. Wait,
Now
what?
we'll never have to do anything
wait.
I
Homestuck
can't believe
related.
you glossed
Why
over back
is-
where
Wait,
Dirk
teacher.
used his
Is
fucking
there-
new like
Teacher, hello, teacher.
Yeah, what is
Teacher.
it, Student Morgan? You have something to say?
Like, what if, but, like, Homestuck 2 's still happening?
What's
So, like,
that? What's that? Homestuck
what-
to the
Yeah,
power of
We,
2.
I want to know about it. What?
You do
what-
want to know
what
about
are
it. Well, possibly in the future, much like how Homestuck 2 is a creation of the fans. It is an amalgamation of like people who enjoy Homestuck, who want to like perpetuate its existence. Perhaps there could be a sort of like team of transfolk and dunces and retards who are going to perhaps engage in this schlock that is being produced by the fans of Homestuck. Perhaps there's a cadre of fools and goofs and gaffs who are going to brave the world of Homestuck 2 and read it and like read it to you and like think about it and like talk about it like a podcast, kind of like a podcast thing. We're all gonna go, we're gonna read Homestuck 2 in Arm Retribution, the fan sequel to the hit podcast Arm Retrieval, hosted by Munchie Shatsky and all his wonderful friends. Arm Retribution will be the sequel to Arm Retrieval. We're going to read Homestuck 2. We're going to go through it all so that you, viewer at home, will know what Homestuck 2 is about without ever needing to grace its hallowed, disgusting halls.
Post
This whole
fucking one, lads.
One.
This whole
All the trailer. The whole thing was all the trailer. What a good wow.
All right.
One.
Coming down. Silence. Coming down. I would like to go through each of my students here, these wonderful people who have joined me on this journey today. I'd like to go to each of you and just sort of ask you your general thoughts on Homestuck, why you like it, what's the future, what do you think? Starting with my friend Morgan. Please tell us what you think about Homestuck. Just closing thoughts. No? Morgan?
We
No?
didn't realize there'd be a
Morgan,
test at the end.
Alright, well, sorry.
Some written
Passing over
essay.
you. Jesus Christ, way to fucking derail my entire closing thought.
Shit.
Jesus fuck. Liam,
The closing argument.
give me your thoughts on Homestuck.
10 out of 10. Well, actually, yeah, you know what? Yeah, 10 out of 10. He was already here. The big green prick, Lord Double Death, Lord Angel of Double Death, Lord English. Homestuck came to me at a time where I was like uber fucked up, and that was wicked. And then like I was like one of the few motherfuckers that actually enjoyed the epilogues, alright? But then it grew on me like a tumor, like bad, and then I hated the epilogues because everyone else hates the epilogues. Also, I busted the fucking wickedest nut to that fucking part with the car, y'all.
Thank you, Liam.
Oh my God.
Die.
Working on it.
Lily, you have never read Homestuck. This was all new to you. What did you think? What are your thoughts on all this?
Especially towards the end, I'm like, oh, a funny Lord English, whatever his actual name is, I forget. Caliborn, that's it.
Yep.
I'm like, he just wants to be an individual. He should have won. Haha, funny.
Caliborn is the protagonist.
Yeah,
He's the
Exactly.
good guy.
I don't believe motherfuckers say Lord English isn't Caliborn. I don't agree with that.
Well, He's a fusion
Lord-
of a
Lord-
bunch of characters,
I mean-
and he doesn't have any of the
He's
cool
a bunch
things
of
about
characters.
Hey,
Caliborn.
silence! Silence.
Yeah, he's a fucking dick.
This is Lily's spot. Lily, are those your thoughts? Is that it?
Yeah, that's pretty
Alright.
much it. I thought there would be more gay.
Fizzy, would you like to share your ending thoughts?
Maybe one day I'll get to talk about the troubling racial implications in this novel.
Yeah, we might get
I
into
feel
that
so
in Homestuck
Caucasian.
We're not talking about
Peachy,
trickster
yeah.
mode or all that.
I feel peachy.
Shut the fuck up. Filler, please share your wisdom with us.
Homestuck is nice. There's a lot of elements to it that are like nice to look back on. A lot of the art is really pretty, and a lot of events that just like make sense the more you experience them. The first entire like half of it, really good, really nice. I like Homestuck. I wish I was stuck in a house one day.
Still
and
holds
played
up. Still holds
or
up. If you have
or
not read
fun
Homestuck
game.
and have somehow made it to the end of this lecture, go do it now. There's
Yeah.
oh shoot. There is a fan like if you go and read Homestuck now, all the flash animations are just like YouTube videos, and you don't even get like the proper experience. So
We'll link it in the
go
video.
go to Twitter user at Bam.
I think it's Bambosh.
Bamboshu.
Just link it in the description.
Yeah, I'll put
Yeah,
a link in
check
the
the
description.
description.
Go to
Wink.
Twitter user Bamboshu, follow this man, and look at his work because he has created an entire web browser that hosts Homestuck in its original quality with the
It's,
Flash integration. It's fantastic.
so check
Go
it out,
use that.
check
If you
it
want
out.
to read
It's
Homestuck, go use that method. Bamboshu at
It's this
Twitter.
funky- it's this
Post-production, we are
funky-
able to bring this to you.
It's this funky, wicked, double awesome thing, you see. It's an offline browser.
Alright, shut up.
And it
Shut up.
rewards you for reading.
No.
No, how are you gonna fucking do it? Fuck!
Cleffa, please share your thoughts.
My thoughts are.
Anything in that noggin, sir. Anything.
I'm afraid. I'm afraid of the fact that we're gonna eventually. There's the inevitability of us reading and covering Homestuck 2 and its Patreon materials. Wink to the audience. Hopefully.
The Patreon shit! I forgot
We'll
about
get
that.
to it. Alright, June.
Is it-
June, thoughts?
It is an indescribable experience to be a little fifth grader tyke sitting at your school computer reading Homestuck for Lit and Comp. And it will give you brainworms, and it will have unseen consequences that are still yet to be shown in its fullest extent.
Yep. Smagnol, please finish us off here with your thoughts.
Homestuck is really awesome. Even if it ends kind of shitty, it's really quite amazing, and it's really good. Everybody should go read it. And the amount of creativity it inspired in like a whole generation of fans
Yeah.
to go off and create all kinds of derivative works and original works beyond it is amazing. Like
Homestuck is incredible.
Homestuck itself is just a speck in the pond of the actual Homestuck content that's out there, which is all questionable, but some of
it's
it's
out there. It nonetheless, it exists. It is inspired a generation, like you said.
Yes, and you should all praise me, Andrew Hussey, and go
Thank you,
buy my.
Andrew Hussey. Please,
go
let's
buy-
all clap. Let's all clap for Andrew Hussey.
Yeah.
Woo.
Go buy my
Andrew
go buy
Hussey.
a silly T-shirt with his royalty sign on it.
I'm not reading
Buy
your
the
visual
merch.
novel.
So, man, you know what? Real shit. I cried at the end of Homestuck. Maybe I am just a big fool.
I cried for
big
different reasons than you, I believe. But yeah, that's it.
I saw it and I felt broken.
Exactly. That is the end of Homestuck 101, an entire timeline of the events of Homestuck. I'm sure I missed a lot of things, but this is about as good as you're gonna get. Like, if you look anywhere on YouTube, like, a video of the Homestuck timeline, you will not find it. I have looked everywhere. There's nowhere that gives you, like, a proper, just complete gun through everything you need to know. This is it.
like a motherfucker who can properly summarize Homestuck. That's some like real legitimate summary execution type shit, literally.
God knows we tried, but it's not over. See the pound in the sequel to Episode 0 of Arm Retribution, Homestuck 101, a complete timeline, in Arm Retribution, Episode 1, a reading of Homestuck 2 Beyond Canon. Everyone scream!
Woo.
Everyone scream!
Yeah!
Yeah!
Goose goal, you can't fight the Homestuck.
Dab, 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 dab.